Okay, everyone, I have a special guest, the one and only Dan Adkins, and I am so excited that he is joining me today. We actually met through a speaking event, and we both were like, we're speaking coaches, so we had to collaborate. And so, Dan, just tell my audience just a little bit about yourself and your journey to becoming a speaking coach.
Well, I will do the very limited version because it's way too long to get into. But first of all, let me say thank you for this opportunity, Alyssa. It's such a pleasure to chat with you, and I thought so from the very beginning, and I'm very excited about it. So, um, excuse me. My journey started with a creative aspect. I was a musician. I actually got an MBA and became a businessman. And then I became an actor, and I was on TV a little bit and then movies. And I made my living in the entertainment business. And I worked with some of the best people who were in front of the camera and behind the camera. Frankly, behind the camera was amazing. Um, and I was very fortunate to do that. And then I decided to go back to the business world. And I had been coaching singers for quite a while because of my music background. I'm a pianist. And so I would play with them and coach them. And that ended up transferring into the business world where I coached a lot of C-suite folks and a lot of, actually, I worked on some projects in a warehouse with supervisors. And I also worked with Methodist ministers and Disciples of Christ ministers and just a ton of people. But I really wasn't throwing myself into that. I did some other things in the interim and just recently decided to pivot back to coaching as a full-time sport. And my audience is entrepreneurial and executive females because there are so many out there who need, as you know, probably better than I, who need to understand that speaking is a learned skill. It can be done. There shouldn't be any angst about it, or if there is, there are ways to manage that angst. And so I thought, well, I can help people in that way, which is my goal.
Yeah.
And so the end.
Beautiful. I love it. So, Dan, before we get into, I know that we have clients that sometimes they get really scared to get on stage, but before we get into strategies to help them get over those nerves, let's talk about why everyone needs to be getting on stage. Like, what benefits are you finding from that?
Well, for me, I think that speaking grows your business at an exponential rate.
Yeah.
I've spoken to so many coaches who say, well, my business was kind of limping along until I started speaking, and suddenly I now have a six-figure business. And of course, it didn't jump on them immediately, but it jumped on them eventually because of their speaking. I just spoke to one coach who spoke at an event. The event had, I think, about 200 people, and 94 people signed up to talk to her.
Yes.
That's extraordinary. You don't do that with emails. Your success rate as a former marketer, and that's where my business background was, you don't emails and going out and networking and things of that nature, which I fully agree with and think are great marketing tools. They don't net you 94 people in an hour.
No, they don't.
And you probably know that as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the exact same thing. The most visible person wins. And when you can get in front of an audience and they have the opportunity to learn about you, learn about what you do, people buy people essentially. And if they connect with you during your presentation, they're going to want a little bit more and they're going to hop on a call with you. And like you just said, 94 people in 1 hour, that works a lot faster than email marketing. Now, email marketing is amazing. Don't get me wrong.
Great
but
thing.
Speed is what we're looking for.
Yeah, they used to say speed kills, but now speed gives life, and it gives life in the particularly in the entrepreneurial area, and coaching is certainly a big part of that. And we're saying it, and I know I'm doing this, saying it as if, well, you just go speak to people, and I know, and and they know that it's not quite that simple.
Yeah.
But in essence, it is that simple. And so it's making sure that you have the right message, that you couch it in the right way, and all of those things so that you reach people. But speaking is by far and away the fastest way to grow your business.
It really is. And, I was in education for 17 years. And one of the things that, was always taught to us as educators is students might not necessarily remember what you teach them, but they're always going to remember how you made them feel. And as a speaker, if we can get on stage and help the audience feel a certain way and understand complex ideas in easier ways, they're going to remember that.
And I know that certainly is my experience. I also was a teacher. Well, I was a K through 12 teacher for the blink of an eye, and realized that was not my calling. But I taught at 2 universities, and I taught undergraduate students, and I taught MBA students at Indiana University. And it is exactly that. It's how you reach them and how you connect. It's not just getting up and blah, 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 and how you make them feel, and how you make them care about what you're saying and about you too. You build that trust.
Yeah. So Dan, let's kind of get into what it is. Okay, I've got this speaking gig. Now, how do I make sure that I present myself, I present my content in a way that resonates with my audience? What are some suggestions? Well, can't talk today. For our audience to be able to do that.
Well, certainly my approach may not be the same as everyone else's, but it is an effective approach that has been successful for people. So I stick with it. And it certainly, helped me a great deal as I was becoming an actor and a speaker, starting out in corporate world, realizing I didn't know how to speak.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that I couldn't put a sentence together. I didn't know how to present. And there is a difference between just chatting with your friend over coffee and actually making a presentation. However, you want to kind of make them the same. So one of the things that I work with as a coach is I try and get people to reframe a presentation more like a conversation. So they're not presenting to the audience, they're actually conversing with them, engaging them. There should be some participation involved, and they're having a conversation, even if the audience doesn't respond.
Yeah.
Because what we know is that no response is still a response. And so what you walk away with, if they do nothing, which won't happen, frankly, but if they do nothing, if they just sit out there and watch you and they're deadpan, then you realize that you have to make some adjustments to what you're doing.
Yeah.
And otherwise they will come with you. So that's one thing. Of course, nerves are usually a big deal for people. And so many people are scared to get in front of an audience. I had one client tell me when we actually in our early times before we started working together, I said, "How do you feel about speaking?" And she said, "I'd rather eat nails." I said, "Well, that's okay. That's a dramatic, dramatic picture." So we worked on some just basic principles of handling, and you don't want to get rid of your nerves because you're not going to. You're not going to win a battle between you and the nerves. The nerves will always win. So the more you say, "I'm not nervous, I'm not nervous, I'm not nervous," the more you're going to lose. And I recommend that you do the opposite of that and say, "Hey, I'm nervous. Okay. Because I care about this, because it's a natural reaction, but I know how to manage my nerves, and I can turn that nervous energy into a positive energy to actually use that energy to reach my audience," because speaking is not a situation where you are hanging in the background. Your visibility means that you're leading the parade.
Yeah.
And when you do that, it doesn't mean you pretend to be someone else. In fact, I hate that. I hate if I see somebody performing.
Yeah.
because usually they're not real good at it because they're not themselves. In this era, you want authenticity, which is a word that's overused, and I realize that, but you want to be genuine. You want to reach out and touch your audience in the heart. And so the important thing with that is to be who you are, represent who you are through your speaking, because most people do this because they have a love of the people that they're trying to help.
Yes.
And you want them to realize that's your passion, but you have to be relaxed enough to allow your passion to come out through your words.
Yeah.
And so it's not about performing, it's about allowing yourself to be present and then focusing on the message. Too many people are going, what does my hair look like? I gotta fix my collar. Oh man. What do I do with my hands? I don't know what to do with my hands. Well, if you're relaxed, your hands will be fine.
Yeah.
Does it mean that you don't use them? No, of course not. Because when you're relaxed, you use hand gestures, but they can't be stilted. So you want it to be a relaxed kind of situation within you, because when an audience is watching someone who's uncomfortable, they become uncomfortable. They want to help you, and they become embarrassed for you and uncomfortable. So you want your comfort level to transfer to them, and that is mainly by focusing out to them. Just with a cup of coffee, you would do that with a friend. You're not thinking about your hands. You're not thinking about your hair. You're just having a conversation. And maybe it's over the coffee and you say, well, no, I really like this place. This is a neat place. I like their coffee. It's really good. And that doesn't take a lot of effort, but it takes some. So you're not sitting there going, oh, I don't like their coffee. It's not. So that's the thing. But you have to be relaxed to do that.
You do.
That was a long diatribe.
No, but you're so right. And, often when people come to us, it is because that they are terrified to get on stage. And so a couple of things that I teach my clients is breathing techniques before, just to ease the nerves, and
Absolutely.
really preparation. If you go in prepared and you have gone over and you said it earlier, know what it is that you're talking about. Understand your core premise. What message is it? When you have absolute clarity around that, it is going to give you more confidence. And so those are some things that can really help. But I also love how you mentioned just embrace the nerves too. Like, it's okay. You're not going to get rid of them. So accept them, embrace them, and nerves can be a good thing.
I've actually had presentations where I found myself getting nervous, and I actually admitted it to the audience. And I said, you guys are a great audience, but I got to tell you, you intimidate me a little bit. I'm a little nervous. And once I did that, the world changed because, they know it now.
Yeah.
But suddenly I wasn't nervous. And you were talking about breathing. I have a thing that I talk about, breathing for 9 elephants. And I say that because an elephant, of course, is a huge animal, takes in a great deal of air. And you go, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But why 9 elephants? And because in your preparation, you don't do this on stage, but in your preparation before you might go out on stage, you breathe in for 3 elephants, 1 elephant, 2 elephants, 3 elephants. You hold it for 3 and you breathe out for 3 elephants. And it makes you focus on the breath instead of your nerves.
Yeah.
And I've seen people do that, and their voice will drop a fourth. Now, I'm a musician, so I think in those terms, but they will literally drop a fourth because they're speaking up here because of their nerves. They're scared. And then all of a sudden they're a baritone. And so that to me is, and I say breathe for 9 elephants for a couple of reasons. One is because of what I just said, but also because people go, what? But they remember it.
They do remember it. And you're so right. When the moment you take in that really deep breath for 3 seconds, you can already feel your body kind of
just,
Oh,
yep.
just relaxing in that moment, because before you were probably like, oh, I'm about to go on and freaking out.
Well, and a lot of that is reframing your mindset. I mean, it's a habit to have that fear.
Yeah.
And most people, they have this habit that immediately that when they hear you have to speak, they and it's just a habit. It's just a reaction. And what I work on a lot is changing that habit to, boy, I get to go speak and tell these people what I'm about and try and reach out to them and touch their hearts so that they understand it.
Yeah,
And
Dan,
I work
I'm
a
so
lot on
glad you said that, because I've always been very comfortable speaking on stage. I think that is the teacher in me. I spoke in front of 8th graders all day long. That wasn't
God
hard.
bless you.
But where I did have to talk myself up was going to networking events. And at first I would be like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And now I switch my mindset and I start telling myself, like, I get to go meet these amazing people.
Absolutely.
And it has like I have a networking event next week. I'm going to be at the Sub Summit event it's 3 days. I'm not going to know a single person there. And I am so stinking excited.
It's
because
so
I'm just like,
perfect.
I'm going to meet some really cool people. And
Yep.
so I can't wait. But it is, for someone that used to be so terrified to go network, it has done a 180 for me. And my clients, your clients,
Fantastic.
everyone who's listening to this, just know, if you're terrified of going on stage, just switch it. I get to go on stage. I get to share my message.
I used to, I coached a large number of MBA students at the Kelley School of Business at Indiana University. And one of the things I coached them on was networking.
Uh-huh.
And the reason they asked me to come in and talk about that and work with these folks is because, they were kind of pumped up. Many of them were getting ready to graduate, and they were very, very smart people. I mean, remarkably smart. But they were a little bit, if they'd been a little dumber, they'd have been a whole lot smarter, because their smart was, when it came to networking, they'd say, well, who's going to be there? And it'd be the CEO of some company or something. And they say, well, what is he or she going to do for me? And I'd say, well, nothing. They're not going to do anything for you. What are you going to do for them?
Yes.
And it's actually turning the tables, because they didn't think that way. They thought, is this going to be valuable for me? Well, yeah, it's going to be valuable for you if you don't go in there like a pompous person and think, you owe me. You need to do something for me. Yeah. No, I need to do something for you. And these are things that I can help you with if the conversation goes to that.
Yep.
But initially, you've got to start the conversation. And usually with networking events, particularly, that starts with, hi, the end. And then people will open up, and then you find out about them.
Yeah.
And you listen to what their scenario is. And maybe you say, you're talking about something that I might know something about. I might be able to help you, and offer them help, not offer them, I have a program that is going to cost you X amount of dollars, but just say, I have some things that might be helpful, and then help them.
Yeah.
And suddenly the conversation is different, because you're making a friend. They're beginning to trust you because you've given them something that they may need.
Yeah.
So, and most of it is just a conversation. It's just, here's what I do. And they may say, we have somebody who does that, or, yeah, I've tried that and it didn't work as well. Why didn't it work? Why do you think that it didn't work? And you have a conversation.
Yeah. And that's what it is. It goes back to even being on stage. In stage,
Absolutely.
Networking, it's a conversation, and you're adding value.
As the song goes, the knee bone's connected to the thigh bone's connected to the hip bone. And so all of these things are interwoven.
Yeah.
As you as you go through your business. And frankly, it's the same thing whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're an executive, because then that's going to improve your career, not just, it's not going to, you don't have a business that you're building, you have a career that you're working on. And it can help it in many ways. You never know who knows who. I'm going to give you a quick story. I was working for a Fortune 200 company when I first got out of business school. I went to the gym one day. I was working my tail off because I didn't know what I was doing. And so I was just working hours and hours and hours. And one Sunday I was at work and I thought, I've got to take a break. So I went to the gym. I know it doesn't look like it now, but this was many years ago. So I went to the gym. I did some workout, and then they had a little area where you could kind of go into a recliner, sit in a recliner, which I did. There was a guy sitting next to me in a recliner, and we were just talking, catching some sun, and just, I said, how you doing? I'm doing fine. Just talking stuff. And he said, what are you doing here on a Sunday? And I said, well, I was going to ask you that, but I worked down the street and I was doing some work, and I kind of wore out. So I came to get some energy. And I'll go home after this, though, and start work tomorrow again. And we talked a little more. It turned out he was the president of the company I was working for.
Oh, my God.
I didn't know that. I was a junior executive. I'd never met him. The next morning on Monday, when I went in to take the elevator up to my office, there he was. And the elevator was silent. If you've been on those corporate elevators, nobody says anything in the morning. They're waiting for their coffee. And the elevator was silent. And I heard this, Dan, how you doing today? And I turned around, and it was the president of the company. And I said, I'm doing pretty well, Mark. How about you? And he said, oh, yeah, I'm doing well. Did you have a good day, a good night last night? He goes, yeah. And I said, great. And then I got off the elevator. Well, my bosses were on that elevator, and they're like, how do you know him? What's the story here? And so, like I say, you never know who you're talking to. You never know who they know. You never know how that can help or hurt you if you're not representing yourself in the best way. So
100%. Yeah. Always be stage ready in that sense,
And just be cordial. People will tell you their life story. If you just say, how's your day going? Suddenly, you hear that, well, Uncle Mark, he's in prison again. And you're like, whoa, I don't mean that. but that's one of the things that can happen. And so people are open to you, and it's just about, they're scared to start the conversation. You're scared to start the conversation. But when you do, you find that they're not scared to talk.
Yeah.
And neither are you.
Yeah. And one of the biggest lessons is they're just people.
They are.
They're just people. So when you have these speaking gigs and you're so nervous and I guess maybe talking yourself out of it, just remember they're just human, just like you are. There's nothing special. They're just people. And so really, to grow your business, get out there and speak. Don't let your fear prevent you from doing that.
And they're there for you. They know that you are the expert in what you're talking about, and they want to hear it. That's why they're there. Yeah. They're anxious to hear you and learn from you. And so when you bring them value and you make connection, man, the world is your oyster, and theirs as well, because they think, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I boy, this is great. And now, you've made a friend, as it were. And maybe you've made a client.
100%. 100%. So Dan, I know that you have a boot camp coming up. In June, 4 speakers. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's kind of a VIP day, but it will be a boot camp.
Said boot camp. I meant masterclass.
But no, it's somebody's probably going to take their boot and use it on me at some point. But it's going to be a 4-hour afternoon where we create and present some speeches. I'm going to work on 3-minute speeches we'll work on the things that you and I have been talking about here in terms of getting in front of people and, being excited about it rather than being scared of it. We're going to work on some of the tools that will address that. We'll work on some things that will address content. We'll work on form and structure to a speech, because a speech is a bit of a funnel. As you talk about a problem, you talk about a solution, you talk about the things that you can help people with, and stories that will illustrate your point down to, and here's what I offer.
Yeah.
And so we're going to talk about how to set that. I don't want to call it a funnel because it gets confusing with other things, but how to set that structure so find the best structure for what you do, and the best way to reach your people.
Yeah. So Dan, is this in person? Is it virtual?
It's going to be virtual. I'd love to do it in person. So anybody who wants to come to Atlanta, we'll do one of those at a later date, but or the Atlanta area. But this will be virtual, and there is a cost to it. Right now, I'm looking at $747. But if they get it through this, I will give them a discount and knock that down to $697.
Thank you. Oh man, did y'all hear that? If you're listening to this, you're getting a discount, and we'll have the notes for that. We'll drop the link for everyone to get access to that. Thank you, Dan.
The best way to do that is to contact me on my Calendly, set up something, and that way I'll know that they came through this. We can arrange all of the pricing and the whole bit.
That's beautiful.
It'll be fun.
Yes, it will. And what a valuable workshop. Like really 4 hours, getting that, you're going to leave with a 3-minute speech. That is, I mean, gosh, just think, if you have a 3-minute speech, you can turn it into a 1-hour speech. You can do so much with it. So take advantage of that.
And we'll talk about how to do that as well to enlarge it. I mean, we won't be enlarging it, but at least we'll have some ideas about how you can. I teach, when I coach one-to-one, I teach developing speeches with pillars, so that if you get a speaking opportunity and somebody says, we told you 15 minutes, but we need 30. Or if they say, we told you 45 minutes, but we're running over, can you cut it down to 30? You just insert or extract a pillar of your speech. And so that's one of the things that I work on and teach, one of the strategies. So I do that with coaching, but we'll talk about that in the masterclass also.
I love it, Dan. And that's actually something that happened to me yesterday. I had a speaking event and they were running over on certain things, and they were like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, but we only have 20 minutes left. And I was like, no problem. I got this.
Exactly.
And you just feel confident to be able to pivot in the moment.
And a lot of times, if you're not used to that, it creates an incredible panic, like the one that when somebody says you have to speak or you're going to speak, it's that kind of, your heart starts racing, your mouth gets dry, your palms sweat, all the stuff that you don't want. Yep. And yet, if you understand it as you do, it's just a walk in the park.
Absolutely. Well, Dan, thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to have to do another episode because I just love talking to you.
And it is my pleasure, Alyssa. I thank you so much for suggesting this, for including me, and for the conversation, because it's tremendous talking with you.
Awesome. Right back at you. Everyone, have a wonderful day. And Dan and I are here to remind you, get on stage. Do it. Let's grow your business. Get on stage.
And get in front of the Zoom also. Don't be scared of the camera. It's techniques are a little different, but they're very, very similar. And the core is the same. So people need your help. They need the value you offer. So get in front of them.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan.
Thank
you.
Bye,
everyone.